At the beginning of the story, it is said that 5 years after an asteroid struck Earth, 75% of the world's population was wiped out. Fragments of the asteroid were still present in the environment. The air had become polluted, and the remaining radiation was still showing its effects. Earthquakes and storms had become common on Earth. Humans had no choice but to live inside bunkers. Now we see a man named John who lives in a bunker in Greenland with his family. He works as an engineer, but he is also a scout, which means he sometimes has to wear a special suit and go outside the bunker to assess the condition of the world. One day, he saw a crack opened up in the ground and realized that these cracks were gradually getting bigger. Then John went to the beach, where he saw some lifeboats and a broken ship. First, he checked every lifeboat, but he did not find anything useful in any of them. So he went inside the ship and found some useful items there, which he kept with him. As he went further inside, he saw many dead bodies. While searching for things, John also found a notebook with a beautiful flower placed inside it. John kept that notebook with him as well. At that moment, he received a warning over the radio from the bunker that a very dangerous storm was approaching. John began running with all his strength because the storm was moving very fast behind him. Fortunately, John jumped over the gate and entered the bunker just in time, and he closed the gate before the storm could enter. After saving himself, John sat in shock. He kept thinking about how close he had been to death. After this, John decided to meet his therapist and started talking about the strange condition of the world. The therapist said that everyone was in the same state. People were just pretending that everything was fine. That is why he told John, "Why are you worrying? You have something in your hands. Spend as much time as possible with your family. Live freely." Meanwhile, John's wife, Allison, was sitting in another bunker in a meeting with the leaders. Everyone was discussing how food supplies were running out. Just then, Allison received a message saying that John had returned safely. In that same meeting, Dr. Amina shared information she had received from scientists in other bunkers. It was about the craters formed by the asteroid. Their size and depth would protect them from storms, and possibly even the toxic air would not harm them much. That is why those places could be good for living. But Adam reminded them that those craters were in France, and war was going on across Europe. Suddenly, an earthquake struck, and the entire bunker began to shake. But everyone simply waited for the earthquake to stop and then returned to their work as if it were completely normal. Someone in the meeting said that these earthquakes were becoming stronger. Then Allison reminded everyone that some people were still trapped outside. We must help them too. But Adam said that they did not have enough supplies to keep more people, and who knows what kind of diseases they might bring. So this matter should be dropped. However, Allison said that they should decide by voting to see what people wanted. Hands were raised, and most people supported Allison, so it was decided that the next day a snow vehicle would be sent out. Later, when John was fixing the bunker's pipes, Allison saw their son Nathan outside. She became very angry and said, "You will fall sick. Come inside quickly." Inside his room, Nathan used a torch to shine light through holes he had made in his bedsheet, which created stars on the wall above, making him feel like he was looking at the sky. The next day, John saw some cracks in the bunker walls. Meanwhile, the vehicle sent from the bunker went outside and rescued some helpless people and started returning. On the way back, the team called the bunker and asked for permission for a second round, because due to lack of space, they had left some people behind. But Adam immediately refused, reminding them that they did not have enough space and food. At that moment, another earthquake struck, and contact with the vehicle was lost. The bunker began shaking even more violently, causing people and objects to fall. Suddenly, several parts of the ceiling broke apart badly. Many people got trapped and were seriously injured. Some rocks fell on John's head, and because of the dust, his cough, which had been going on for days, became worse. But one of his friends helped him get out. Then all the alarms started ringing, and the bunker began shaking again. A loud explosion was heard from a distance. John ran toward the office to save Allison. Allison was badly injured. John quickly helped her stand, and both of them went to look for their son. They found Nathan in his room wearing a mask, but even then he was having difficulty breathing. John told his family to pack their things as quickly as possible. Until then, I will bring more masks so that we can leave this bunker. Everyone was running around in panic, but John still managed to reach the lockers and bring back masks. After that, Nathan felt a little better, and the family prepared to leave. When the shaking of the bunker stopped, the walls began to break apart. A distressed crowd gathered at the exit, but the gate was only half open, and it was impossible to leave through that door. So John took his family toward the back exit. Unfortunately, the back way had also collapsed. With no other option, John told his family to crawl forward. Somehow they reached the door, and John pressed the button. But because of the heavy engine, the bunker broke apart even more. At least they managed to reach outside safely. Outside, there was chaos everywhere. When explosions of water began from the ground, they lost Nathan and ran back to find him. They saw Nathan helping Amina, who had fallen. They took Amina with them and ran toward the beach. The remaining people were trying to save their lives by getting onto boats. So many people gathered that one boat overturned and everyone fell into the water. Some desperate and restless people took advantage of the situation and tried to snatch Adam's mask. So Allison and John ran to save him. But then a man jumped at John and snatched his mask. Even so, somehow he and Allison dragged Adam to the shore. Now only one boat was left. John began quickly guiding his family and some others to get on it. Allison wanted to save as many people as possible, but the captain said there would be too much weight and the boat would sink, so they were forced to shut the door in people's faces. The people standing outside clung to the boat until it started moving. At that moment, a huge wave came forward and struck the shore, sweeping those people away. John's boat was also tossed violently by the wave, but the captain somehow managed to control it, and they continued forward safely. After some time, John used a device to confirm that the air quality here was safe, so they could remove their masks. Then everyone sat and discussed where to go. Since Iceland was destroyed, they decided that their nearest destination was England. After a few hours, the boat stopped working, but John checked the engine and fixed it, allowing them to continue their journey. When night came, Nathan was very happy because he finally got to see the stars. A few days later, the boat stopped again because it had run out of fuel. Now no one had any solution, so they left the boat to the mercy of the ocean waves, hoping they would take them somewhere. After a long wait, the boat finally reached land. Everyone looked outside in surprise when they realized they were in Liverpool. John confirmed with his device that the air here was clean, but they would have to find shelter as soon as possible. However, when they looked down, they saw that part of the area was submerged in water. John took an oar and began rowing the boat until it finally hit a dry road. Everyone got off the boat and saw that the city looked completely deserted. They saw some people on the road and followed them, reaching a place where people were somehow trying to survive. John noticed that many of them looked sick and would not survive for long. John's group heard screams. Following the sounds, they saw a crowd. Many people were shouting outside a bunker, while some soldiers were guarding it. Adam began arguing with the soldiers, and the crowd grew angrier. Suddenly, a soldier shot Adam. When another man in the crowd tried to force his way inside, he was also shot. The soldiers closed the gate, and alarms began ringing. At that moment, a storm appeared in the sky, and the crowd panicked and ran. Amina and John's family stopped a van and asked the driver to take them to London, but the driver demanded payment, so John gave him his watch. The driver agreed, and the vehicle sped out of the city. They escaped the storm in time. Allison hugged Nathan and comforted him that everything would be okay, while Amina was deeply saddened by Adam's death. The driver said that people had become so desperate they would kill anyone for food. After a few hours, the van stopped for a short time in the middle of a forest. John asked the driver if he knew anything about the condition of France, but the driver said that area was extremely dangerous, and the story about the asteroid craters having good land and water sounded like a lie to him. Suddenly they heard a strange sound and saw that pieces of the asteroid were still falling from the sky. Everyone quickly grabbed onto trees so they would not be blown away by the wind. But the driver said that the van was his everything and ran to save it. During this, the fragments began falling to the ground, and one of them destroyed both the driver and the van. When the rain of fragments ended, the 4 survivors took their bags and whatever useful items they could find from the van and continued their journey on foot. Eventually, they reached London and knocked on the door of a very large building. The door opened, but suddenly a woman named Mackenzie pointed a gun at them. By coincidence, they were old friends of Mackenzie's. She immediately lowered the gun and let them inside. She showed them around and explained that the building was a retirement home, so all the residents were elderly. Mackenzie said she had sealed the entire building and was running a generator with the help of some solar panels that kept the air clean. Everyone ate and talked a lot. John asked Mackenzie about the deep craters in France. Mackenzie said she had heard rumors but did not know whether they were true. Later, Allison tried to sleep, but how could she? John was coughing repeatedly in the bathroom. When he looked into the sink, he saw blood. John tried to avoid the matter, but Allison said, "Please tell the truth." So John finally revealed his secret. He said that a doctor in the bunker had told him that once the bleeding started, he would only have 6 to 8 weeks left to live. Hearing this, Allison was completely shattered. She said, "Let us stay here for 2 months. Spend your last days peacefully." But John said, "I am not going to die here. I will take you and our son safely to France. After finding a new home for you there, I will die peacefully." The next day, Mackenzie gave them an old car parked at the retirement home so they could safely reach their destination. She also handed John a gun for protection. Mackenzie hugged them one last time, and the 4 of them left. A few hours later, while passing the edge of the city, John noticed Nathan looked sad. They began playing a game while talking to cheer him up. Suddenly, a bullet shattered the window and struck Amina directly, killing her on the spot. Some men hidden in bushes kept firing at them. They did not aim at the engine because they wanted to steal the car. John immediately took position behind the car and began firing back. As the robbers came closer, John shot them down one by one. Only one man remained, but John ran out of bullets. However, Allison had another gun and shot the last man before he could harm them. After comforting each other, they dug a grave together and buried Amina. John said a prayer for his friend, which Nathan listened to carefully. A few hours later, the family reached a vast desert area. They realized this used to be the sea between England and France. The water had receded, so at least they would not need a boat. On the way, they saw many stranded ships. A little further ahead, they saw some people. Looking closely, they realized there was a huge crack in the ground, and they had to cross to the other side using a dangerous rope bridge. Nathan became very scared and said he would not go. John encouraged him and went first. The entire family slowly and carefully began crossing the ropes. When John suddenly coughed, he almost slipped but quickly regained his balance. Suddenly, strong winds began blowing and shook the bridge violently, but somehow they held on. Fortunately, the wind stopped soon, and they continued forward, reaching a rock in the middle. From there, 2 ladders led to the other side. They had just reached between the ladders when a powerful earthquake struck. Luckily, none of them fell. They started moving forward again when another earthquake hit. This time, the rocks on both sides began breaking apart. Soon, the rope bridge also broke. Many people fell into the abyss and died. A man on the other ladder panicked and pushed the man in front of him into the abyss to reach the other side quickly. But then the ladder itself began slipping, so the man jumped and landed on Nathan. At the same time, the other ladder fell into the abyss. The family held on to Nathan while that man slipped to his death. They helped Nathan climb back up and somehow crossed the ladder. Now they had no option but to walk. No matter how far they went, they saw only barren land. Suddenly they heard gunshots and saw a man named Denis pointing a gun at them, but he lowered it when he realized they were not robbers. He took them to his home. Soon, John and his family reached France. Denis was living in an old factory powered by a car engine. He introduced them to his daughter, Camille, and his wife. His wife had been badly affected by radiation. She was in a wheelchair and could not speak. During dinner, Denis learned that John's family wanted to reach the asteroid craters. He warned them that the area would be extremely dangerous, with people killing each other to take control. Meanwhile, Camille took Nathan to her room and showed him all her cool things. In return, Nathan showed her his bedsheet with holes that created stars when light shone through it. The next morning, Denis gave John a map and showed him the least dangerous route. He also mentioned an old friend from the army who now held a high post and gave John an old photo with him to prove they knew each other in case it helped. Suddenly, Denis tearfully made a request to John. "Could you take Camille with you?" He wanted to take his daughter to the crater himself, but he had to stay to care for his wife. John hesitated, but Allison immediately agreed. Camille said goodbye to her parents and left with John's family in Denis' van. After driving for a few hours, Allison noticed the children were upset, so they decided to take a break. John played a game with them to improve their mood. Suddenly, they saw vehicles on the road, and several soldiers surrounded them. Camille mentioned her father's general friend's name, and the soldiers allowed them to cross the area. By night, they reached a battlefield where the army was fighting others. A soldier led them from behind so they could pass through the forest unnoticed. When an explosion occurred nearby, they had to stop. Soon they resumed and crossed wires into a more dangerous area. They had to run as fast as possible to avoid bullets and explosions. People were dying everywhere. They saw a man engulfed in flames. The soldier with them called the bunker and said civilians were with him, and other soldiers told them to keep moving while providing cover. They reached a tunnel prepared for war. John began coughing badly and almost collapsed. Inside the tunnel, they saw many dead bodies. Finally, they reached a ladder, and the soldier sent them into the forest, saying, "Just keep walking straight until you reach the camp." By morning, they finally reached the military camp. Camille pointed to some mountains that had not been there before. John calculated that they were very close to their destination. When they asked a soldier about Denis' friend, they learned he had died, and these soldiers were not interested in helping them. So John told them he had only a few days left. He just wanted to save his family. One man felt pity and gave them seats on his bus. John's family and some others boarded the bus that would take them to their destination. But on the way, an explosion halted their journey. Suddenly, robbers surrounded the bus. A soldier stepped out to fight but was immediately shot. A thug then killed the driver and forced everyone to get off the bus. John sent his family outside but stayed behind to attack the robber. Hearing a noise, another robber tried to enter the bus, but one of the passengers hit him on the head with a stone. Then 2 gunshots were heard from inside the bus. John came out holding a gun and everyone was happy, but John had also been shot. Everyone got back on the bus. Nathan pressed on John's wound while Allison drove. Soon they reached the top of a newly formed mountain, and the family supported John as they walked until they saw their destination. All the rumors were true. The crater formed by the asteroid was an incredibly beautiful place with fertile land and no pollution. It was the perfect place to start a new life. At that moment, John collapsed, and his family surrounded him to say a final goodbye before his death. Everyone cried bitterly at John's death. Finally, Nathan recited the same prayer for his father that he had heard before. If you liked the video, please like it. Subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.